As Marcus mentioned, what I want to do during this session is cover some of the major feature releases for LT over the past sort of 10 months or so, and also touch on what's coming next as well. So a little minor update on what we're kind of working on at the moment, what you can expect to see in the next few months. So hopefully I can share my video now. There we go. So I'm just going to share my screen. And I apologize, I'm sure some of you already know about the features I'm going to cover or have already used them extensively. But there's been a few additional developments that we already have anyway. So you might still gain something from this little session. So the primary big releases that have come out over the last year have been updates to LT's analytics dashboard, the new content library, and also additional options for identifying and filtering staff within LT. So I can take some questions at the end. I don't think I'm going to take up the whole 30-minute slot. So again, as Marcus mentioned, type your question into the Q&A preferably, or you can type it into chat if you like. So the first thing I want to look at is the new analytics dashboard within LT. So for those of you that have used LT for a long time, I'm sure you've been familiar with the kind of dashboard that previously popped up when you clicked on a given LT course on the right-hand side here. The dashboard kind of gave you a brief overview of what your students are up to within certain bits of content within LT, but didn't really allow you to drill down and identify those students that are not engaging. And you also couldn't really kind of track grading or attempts on questions. You had to kind of go to the grading interface in student work in order to do that. Since then, we've updated the analytics dashboard to kind of centralize all that information in one place. So it's got all the features of the previous dashboard that popped up, but we offer a larger number of features in here that let you kind of get all the information about engagement and summarizing grading all in one place. So to access the analytics, you click on a given course. Don't click on any of the menus, as that will just obviously open the menu here. Click on the course and the analytics button will be visible here. And you also get told immediately of the students that are on this LT course, how many are have actually set up their account. So you can see that there are 2 students here that have yet to set up their account. So quite a nice little bit of information there immediately telling us if there are some students that have yet to even access the platform. So if we click on analytics, I've only got a single bit of content here, but I can show you in another instance what it looks like if there's lots of bits of content published within this course. But when we open analytics, we're given access to 2 tabs at the top here. So we can kind of view student progress and grades on a lesson by lesson basis. So click on a bit of content and see which students are working on it, which have committed, what kind of marks the students are getting on average, how many of them have attempted it. Or we can click on students to actually look at the activity for a given specific student. See what content they've completed, what content they haven't started, what kind of marks they're getting. So you've kind of got either option depending on how you want to filter things. So if we go to lessons, you can filter by section as well. So for those of you that assign sections to your students, you can show only lessons that are published in particular sections. And we can click on the lesson name at the top here to drill down. But one thing that may not be obvious is you can also mouse over the little kind of, what's the word, kind of summary bar down here that shows you the distribution of students that have committed or in progress or have not started the lesson. If you mouse over, you'll notice that the bar kind of highlights. You can actually click this and it'll tell you not only how many students make up that particular section, but you can also grab their names. So here are all my students that have committed. I can actually grab all those emails. I could paste those into my email client and I could send them an email congratulating them on completing the work. But what we're probably more interested in is the students here, the not started students. Again, I can click on this, I can grab their names, I can copy that and I can paste that into my email client. I can follow up with those students and ask if they're having problems accessing LT or why they haven't worked through this content or why they haven't even started this content. So quite a nice little feature there, particularly good for kind of tracking down those students that are not engaging. Like I said, you're probably more worried about them than you are about the ones that are doing the work. But if we click on the name of the content at the top here, we'll kind of drill down a level, and this will give us a nice summary of the distribution of students and the number of questions that have been attempted in grades. Now, not much is shown here because there's only a few students that have access to this revision. If I go to this other revision, we get a bit more information. So we can see how many students have committed, on average, how many questions they've actually attempted, and what the average grade is now. I'm not sure why it's coming out as 54 to 50. I think that's a bug with this. This is an older course. I suspect that might be the root cause of this weird grading readout here. But we can actually go to each question that has a grade assigned, and we can actually expand it out, drill down, see what, in this case for a drag and drop, what's the average grade that a student got, how many students have attempted it, what's their average mark. So quite a nice little bit of stats here for you to go through and just identify if there's a question where the average grade is very low, and you can kind of drill down and, you know, talk to those students about what they found difficult about that question, or you can look at the question itself and think about redesigning it. Is it ambiguously worded? Is it a bit confusing, therefore they picked the wrong answer, or is it simply too difficult and therefore you should change it? So this can inform you on, not just inform you of how the students are doing, but also inform you of particular pain points for certain questions, or allow you to identify questions that you may need to revise or look into a bit more. And you also get a little summary at the top right here of how many students have you fully graded. So there are 19 students, only one has actually been fully graded, as in all of their answers have been assigned a mark. There are 18 that have at least one question that you've yet to grade in the grading interface in the student work for this particular course. So again, you can quickly, rather than having to go into student work and grading, you can identify sort of how much more work you've got to do to complete the grading for this given lesson. So yeah, really useful. This wasn't present in the previous form of the dashboard. So it really lets you drill down and identify problem questions and see what the average marks are without having to go all the way through to the grading interface. The other option, as I mentioned, is to go to students. So this will then list all of the active students on your course. And again, you can click on the little progress bar here to identify, you know, how many lessons have they actually committed total, how many have they not started. Obviously there's only one here, so I'm only being shown a single bar. And you can click on the student in question to drill down to that student's progress within a given lesson. What I'll do here, you can see I've committed this one, but you can actually, if you go, I'm going to go to a slightly different instance here. If I go to the analytics here, you can see in a bit more detail what it might look like for a student who's worked through a lot more content. So we can see here, also, if we've got the lessons as a module, you'll see that it's kind of listed under the module heading, so you can quickly identify work that's within a module. You can see when I committed it and what my grade is. So again, you can have a nice little snapshot of how a given student's doing. The little summary bar here will let you kind of, again, identify students that have a lot of gray or a lot of blue, a lot of light blue, indicating that they've not committed work or they've not started work. You can drill down and see what they haven't done. And again, you can filter by section if desired. So a little bit less here than the individual lesson dashboard, but it is a nice summary. Again, if you know there's a student who is not engaging and you need to really engage that, get that student to be engaged to help them through, you can drill down and see what they have and haven't worked on and what kind of marks they're getting. So yeah, the analytics dashboard, it's evolved a lot. We've added a lot of new features in here just to help you really drill down into a bit more detail compared to the kind of summary dashboard we had previously, which, is good for a general overview, but it was difficult to identify problem students. You couldn't see you could see that a lot of students hadn't started, but you couldn't see who they were. You'd have to go all the way through to student progress and filter there in order to find the students. With the dashboard, you can kind of all do it all the way from all from this one location. Sorry. Okay, so the second big release that we pushed out in the last year or so is the content library. I'm sure most of you have used this to download pre-made ADI content, but there's been quite a few nice little quality of life features added in the past few months that you may not have noticed if you've already been teaching or you've finished teaching. Something for you to look back at before you start using LT for your next block of teaching. So the content library is this little button at the top here. Again, click on a course and it's now shown as the very first option in the menu. And this will allow you to download pre-made ADI content directly into this specific LT course. So it's not downloading all the content for all of your LT courses, it's for just this specific course that I'm currently viewing. And I'm sure most of you have seen this kind of menu here on the kind of bottom 2/3 of the dialog. So you can click on, I'm going to remove these filters. So you can click on any given collection here on the left-hand side to view the content that comprises that collection. And you then have the option to either download all of the modules and lessons for that collection all in one go with a single click, if you do want all of it, or you can cherry pick the content that you want just by clicking on the little import button here to download this directly into your LT course. So this is the option that I imagine most people will use. You probably don't want all of the lessons in a collection. So you can just pick those that you want and it'll just go through a short import process, depending on your bandwidth. I think mine's a little low today. And it'll download these directly into this LT course. They'll then appear in the lessons and modules menu within this specific course. So we'll just give it a moment to download those and we should be able to then see them in our little course here. So while it's doing that, I want to point out a few additional features that have come in over the past few months that you may not have seen before. So we've actually added quite a few filters here at the top of the dialog. And this really can help you identify the content, or sorry, filter down to the content that you actually want or you have access to. So obviously here we've got a lot of different language content. You know, we're a global company. We have a lot of translated content for different regions, but you can filter directly to a specific language if desired. LT will also remember the filters next time you access this specific course, so you shouldn't have to go in and change these filters every time. So we can filter by language, fairly obvious, you know, depending on what language you want to be teaching in, you can show only that content. We also have this one here called that allows you to filter by sampling type. So it makes more sense if I click on this. So you can show content based on what type of device or no device you plan on using. So if we click on PowerLab, we actually get shown any and all content that utilizes a PowerLab. So nice and easy, nice and straightforward. It will show you the entire module if that lab session if that module has a PowerLab session. So it does include the pre-learning. There aren't 5 lessons in here in the stroke module that we use the PowerLab. There's 1, but we include the entire module because you probably want to use the pre-learning as well. We have LT sensor specific stuff as well. We can filter by Go Direct sensors. So for those of you who don't know, we've partnered with Vernier in the US, who have designed some biology content, some biology specific content that we at ADI are less familiar with, so it's harder for us to write. And their Go Direct sensors are compatible directly with LT, so you can filter down to that specific content if that's what you want to be showing. We also have distance learning versions of most of our or a number of our modules. So you can show these. These don't have any kind of sensor used with them or any kind of hardware utilized with them. They're purely kind of pre-learning or distance learning versions of some of our content. And we can also show those that have all of the content that doesn't have a recording device. So the idea here is it will download all of the lessons in this module, but it won't download the one that has the PowerLab. So this is all of our kind of online only content that, I mean, obviously you can use the lab sessions without a PowerLab because of the example data, but if you're not interested in having any kind of lab follow on from the pre-learning, you can just straight up download the pre-learning directly into your course. And of course you can show all of them as well. The final option, and this is pretty useful for most people, is showing the content you actually have access to as part of your subscription. So in the past, we kind of have to tell you which collections you can actually use with students. So for those of you who don't know, you can still download content that you don't have a subscription to, but you won't be able to use that content with students, and you also won't be able to edit the content in authoring mode. You'll only be able to preview the content as an admin. So what you can do is effectively, when it comes to setting up your instance, we check a few boxes on our kind of portal that determines the content you have access to. If you click subscribe content, it will show you only the content that you can use with students. So really quick way, if you're unsure about what collections you have access to, click this filter, click subscribe content, and there you go. It will show you all of the different collections on the left that you actually have access to. The other option is you can show the content that's for evaluation use only, so the content that you are not subscribed to. And any content that you have not subscribed to, you'll have this kind of red P next to, which indicates it's premium content that you haven't subscribed to. You'll notice again that I can still download this content into my LT course, but as I said, you can't publish it to students, so students can't work through the content and you can't edit it, change the content. You can just preview it. So if there's a collection that you think you might be interested in, you can download that collection and preview it to see if it is actually something that you want to add to your subscription before you go through that process. So quite a nice little feature. If you do want to look at what else we have available and you think something might be relevant, you can still download and preview that content. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the content library. These little filtering options have come in fairly recently. Obviously, you can also search for a particular keyword or lesson name or content name at the top here if you know exactly what you're looking for. But yeah, you can grab that content, download it directly into your LT course. So here's the cardiovascular system and the integumentary system that I've downloaded from the content library. So the third and final thing I want to talk about, a fairly minor feature, but something that a lot of people have requested, is a few more filtering options and kind of not exporting, but display options for staff members that have access to LT. So if we go into staff accounts, there's been a few additional filters added in here. The staff accounts menu is where you invite somebody to join the course as an admin and allow them to do, well, depending on the role you select, allow them to do certain things, whether it's editing content or grading or anything within that course. This is where you invite them. You can now actually filter by role within the course. So if you're unsure who currently is a course admin, this is a default role for staff members that's available. Course admin could do anything within that course, absolutely anything, from adding students to grading to editing content to publishing and setting release times for content. You can easily filter down and see which members of staff actually have this role. It's not something that's present before, so you kind of have to go in manually, which can be a bit of a pain if you have a lot of staff members that are collaborating on a given course. And just like in student accounts, you can now also filter by whether a staff member is active or pending. And just again, emphasize, this is a kind of global indicator. A staff member is either active on every single course or they are pending on every single course. Once you've got an invite to LT, you don't need to sign up again. If you're added to a new course as a staff member, you'll just see it when you log in next. But yeah, if there are staff members that said they lost their invite or they're struggling to, they deleted the email, you can see those staff members here and resend the invite. If you click on a pending staff member, you can re-invite them by clicking the re-invite button here. And the last little thing, before I talk about the next little feature, is there is now a list of all staff members that have access to LT in some form via the instance admin menu. So I need to log in as an instance admin. So if we go to if you have instance admin access, you'll see that instance admin menu just below your university crest. In here, if you go to there's a menu here, that a new menu called staff, and this simply will list all staff members that currently have access to the LT instance in some form. It doesn't tell you their exact role, but it's a quick way to go in and go right, rather than go to each individual course to try and see if the person who's having trouble does actually have an account and has actually accessed the instance. You've got this little portal here. There's this little list here that allows you to just quickly go through. I mean, you can just use Control F to find the given staff member. If you know part of their email, you can quickly find them. in this little list. Otherwise, you'd have to go through each individual course and go, okay, I invite them to one of the courses, I don't know which one. I'll have to go through and go to the staff account in each to see if their account is active or pending, and then go from there. Now it's a bit easier by going via the instance admin menu. You can quickly identify if a staff member actually has an account or not. So quite a nice little, fairly small releases, but again, kind of nice quality of life changes to the staff filtering there as well. So the last thing I want to talk about very briefly, details are, I don't have a lot of detail on this at the moment, but our next big thing is working on the integration between LT and LMSs, the learning management systems such as Blackboard, Canvas, and Moodle. Our intention, as I understand it, is to move over to the LTI standard. So for those of you who don't know, that's Learning Tools Interoperability. So this basically means if your LMS adheres to LTI and another system such as LT does as well, it makes it easy for them to talk to each other. And this is kind of a global standard, which will mean that pretty much any system that is LTI compliant could, in theory, talk to LT in some form. You know, the exact details are a bit, you know, it depends what the system is. But ultimately, what this will mean is that as well as retaining the features from the existing kind of building block model of being able to push students from your LMS course into the linked LT course, and create the accounts in the student accounts and send the invites out all at once, and being able to push grades from the grading view in LT to the grading center in the linked LMS course. This should allow also for something called deep linking. I don't have all the details exactly. This is very early stages for our development team. But the idea will be is that will effectively be a single sign-on for the students. Again, like I said, the details are a bit, I don't have a lot of detail right now, but that's kind of what we're going to be working on next. And the LTI standard will allow for additional feature development down the line as well, and it'll be a bit easier for us to kind of update and maintain. So yeah, I don't have much more detail than that, but we plan on implementing that because it's generally a bit of a better standard for getting systems to talk to each other than the kind of building block method that we use at the moment. I think that's all I've got to say for now. So I'll open the floor to some questions. We've got some stuff in chat. So I'll just go through chat and see what we have. Yeah, so for the one question is about sort of translating the content. Yeah, so what we try and do is do community translated content. So what we have been doing in certain territories is speaking to a user of LT in that territory who is a native speaker, but also has very strong English skills, and they can more effectively help us translate the content into that language. I think that's kind of the model that we've been trying to use a bit more for that reason, as you said it. And in some cases, yeah, a lot of some things can be lost in translation if you just kind of do it verbatim, or you're translating it, but you're not a native speaker of the language you're translating into. So the idea is we're trying to do community translated content a bit more at the moment. So in terms of plans to develop student analytics further, I'm not sure exactly what we plan to do beyond the integration part that's coming up next. I think there are plans to do it, but I don't know for sure. It certainly could be built upon, but for the moment there aren't any kind of firm plans for the future. But as far as I know, but I'm not the be-all end-all of what's coming up. I say watch this space, and I'll see if I can get some more information for the developers on that as to what priorities might be beyond the kind of the integration work. Do we have anything else? So one question is there an option to provide students with authoring rights? Yes, I'll answer it live. So yes, Stuart, you could grant students authoring rights. The easy way to do that is to invite them via staff accounts in the given LT course, using their student email address. So you go to staff accounts, invite, and type in their student email and pick them to be an author. This is, again, another default role that restricts them to only being able to edit content. They can't publish or grade or invite other students. And one of the things that not a lot of people are aware of, because it's not always that useful really, is that you can have an admin account and a student account under the same email address at the same time. So to illustrate, if we scroll down a bit to some of these other courses here, you'll notice that if I click on this, my colleague Harriet's course here, I'm currently viewing this as the admin, but you'll notice I have a little drop down arrow here that I can click. And I actually do have full student access to this specific LT course. So you can use the same, you can invite a student as an admin with the same email address. They'll just have this little down arrow next to the course that will allow them to toggle between their student view and their admin view for that course. Or if they only have access as an admin, they won't see that, but they'll see the course and they'll be able to click on it, and it should just show the admin view for them. So yeah, you can invite a student as an admin as well if you like, using the same email address.